It's that easy. 13-5, Melinda Gray, who also goes by the name Mel Waterhouse, and Sydney Mad and George Thompson. They've been revealed as the pair who breached the border directions and moved about southeast Queensland while infected with a Delta strain of COVID. Now, you've heard me going on about George Thompson throughout the program. He's just a 26-year-old bloke. He came up from Sydney to Ballina to meet with the 36-year-old Melinda Gray, and who then transported him by road to Tugun on Wednesday, July the 14th, and subsequently on to Brisbane, bringing the Delta strain here into Queensland. Now, it's alleged George Thompson attended 3 stops in Chermside where he used an untrue information to check into shops on July the 15th. And after being placed into hotel quarantine in Brisbane, Thompson allegedly opened the door to his room and verbally abused staff while not wearing a mask. Now, he's been given a $10,000 fine in total, almost $10,000. Melinda Gray, she's been given a $4,000 fine. But are the fines enough? Do they work? I reckon they don't. It's not going to stop someone like George Thompson. He's just going to thumb his nose at us. But let's find out what the theory on these fines are, and how can we make penalties work. Terry Goldsworthy is a criminologist and a former detective inspector with the Queensland Police. He was in policing for 28 years, and he joins me on the line now. Terry, thanks for being on 4BC Drive.
Yeah, good afternoon, Scott.
Now, these fines, because George Thompson committed a number of offences, his total fine is almost $10,000. Looks like the girlfriend here, Melinda Gray, hers is about $4,000. But someone like George Thompson, he's already been reported as saying, no remorse at all for what he's done. Do fines work in these circumstances?
Yeah, look, I guess we probably need to look at the background. We're seeing police now enforcing health protocols, and that was in response to, the declared public emergency around COVID-19, where we amended our Public Health Act back in March 2020, where it created certain offences for failing to comply with requirements and directions from the Chief Health Officer, and the police will enforce that. So, this is really, I guess, law enforcement coming out of their normal role, dealing with crime and actually dealing with enforcing new health and social regulations to ensure that our community keeps functioning in a civil manner. So to go to, I guess, your question about do the fines work, well, I think that's the starting point that we need to look at. And certainly if someone's going to be a serial offender or show a blatant disregard, then no, I wouldn't necessarily have any great opposition to them doing some time inside. And we saw someone who was blatantly breaching lockdown requirements, I think, in South Australia, get 2 months. I think, depending on the particular circumstances, that may well be warranted.
So in South Australia, they did jail time?
Yeah, I think it was South Australia. I certainly know there was a case where someone in the recent week or two has been in prison for 2 months for breaching those kind of directions. So, the problem we have, and we saw the riot, I guess, protest/riot down in Sydney and also in Melbourne on the weekend, is that, people are going, we've got the right to protest, we shouldn't be locked down, etc. The problem we have at the moment with the social contract that we've kind of got with COVID is that until we vaccinate everyone who wants to be vaccinated, there's a substantial threat there to vulnerable groups. I think once that everyone's vaccinated, you will see the policing aspect of this pull back, and it will be a case of, well, you've had the opportunity to be vaccinated. If you choose not to, we're just going to treat this as a normal health issue.
If it's not penalties, like a fine, and for some reason they decide, well, look, say for George Thompson, he's going to probably just get out of the hospital and the hotel quarantine and do the bunk back to New South Wales and ignore paying the fine. Why not say something like community service, having picking up rubbish along the road on the highway there? Is that something it is more a disincentive to people to break the law?
Well, he'll get the fines, because my understanding the way it works is that these offences have now been included in the SPURS, or the State Penalties Enforcement Regulations, that allow the service of infringement notices for these type of offences. So he doesn't necessarily have to ever appear in court as long as he pays the fines. If he was charged, taken to a watch house and charged, then he'd have to go to before magistrate, and he may well get a different outcome than a fine. So it really kind of depends, I guess, on what path the police initially take. And someone like him, they may take the path of least resistance, given the fact he's positive at the moment. I don't know when that runs out, and just serve him with the notices and see what happens with that. But I would suspect if he's caught offending again, then it would be appropriate for him to be charged and taken before court.
All right, Terry Goldsworthy, great to have you on 4BC Drive.